And yes, she knew that wolf was misspelled. It was meant to be a joke, and it was actually, when you thought about it, quite witty. Not that anyone ever did seem to think much about it. July's chess master had critiqued the name in a fit of postcoital persnicketyness, a tendency augured by his precise sexual gambits, positing that since wolves were canines, it would be a funnier name for a dog. But Meg Rhys didn't like dogs, nor did she lead a life conducive to needy creatures, and thus hadn't seen the chess master since. Her younger brother, James, on the other hand, owned a beagle that took Prozac, which was all anyone needed to know about that. Yes, Meg knew that she didn't have to be a spinster. This was how it was often said by her mother or her mother's friends, or by frustrated men when she shooed them along. The chess master, the bankish guy before him. He'd been great at buying wine, but loved a particular movie in a way she found unforgivable. Meg wasn't unattractive. They knew of much less desirable women who had married and even had children. It could still all turn out okay for her. Her, a smart lady with a good job, decent interpersonal skills, an appealing, if snaggle-toothed smile, a passable figure she knew how to flatter, a bookish intelligence that surely someone found appealing. Couldn't she find a husband? They usually forgot to ask the question, did she want to be a wife? Because the answers were, of course, to the former, yes, to the latter, no. All her heroes had resisted wifehood. Jane Austen, Emily Dickinson, Lolly Willows. Okay, so Lolly Willows was a fictional character and eventually became a witch, but still, Meg reasoned, better a witch than a wife. Just look what had happened to Sylvia Plath, to Dorothea Brooke. You couldn't say that, though. It rankled. It offended married people because you were implying that their own carefully constructed lives had snags woven into them, that they might have chosen another way and turned out perfectly satisfied, or more so. So no one wanted to hear this. So she had a stock response. If I ever married, I would lose my spinster librarian card. She'd said it so many times, she'd begun to imagine the card was an actual object, providing access to books no one else knew existed, which, she felt, would be a much more useful resource than a spouse any day. Meg Rhys, it was pronounced Rhys, yes, like the pieces. No, that was not funny to point out to her. And no, it hadn't been her idea to call her column in the library newspaper Rhys's Pieces, a name she, in fact, found repellent, was the almost head librarian of the Brooklyn collection, a glassed-in suite populated by beleaguered trolleys and sway-backed shelves that groaned beneath leather-bound volumes. An informational ghetto on the second floor of the Brooklyn Central Library, crammed into 3 rooms approximating the floor-through layout of a typical brownstone tenement, a place whose flat files of annotated maps had given Meg a shudder of longing the first time she saw them. If Meg's brain, or soul, or whatever you wanted to call it, had been a building, it would have been the Brooklyn collection. So she was happy, or content. That was grown up for happy, wasn't it? To spend her days there, usually alone, often in silence. Every evening at 5:15, once the custodial staff had absolved the featherweight garbage bags of their penciled paper and seltzer cans, after lights had been dimmed and the Brooklyn collection doors locked, Meg Rhys said goodnight to Gil and Helen and made her way downstairs, the actual stairs, never the escalator, stopping to check for what was new on the hold shelf for her. Generally, she would take home whatever book she found there and read it immediately, swallowing it whole like a snake digesting a cow. Today, there was the first volume of an epic novel written by an African-American wife and mother, which was being universally touted for its candidness about female lives. There was also an illustrated biography in verse about Emily Warren Roebling and the construction of the Brooklyn Bridge. Meg shared forced pleasantries.